What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Let me draw your attention to an article from 2022, September 17th, when the whole conversation of the Activision acquisition was in the biggest light. Paul Tassi at that time wrote an article that he titled, "Sony isn't scared of Call of Duty exclusivity, Sony is scared of Game Pass." I'm bringing this article to your attention because just recently, the PlayStation lineup of the games that are going to be on the PlayStation Plus Essential package have just been unveiled. And I have to say, it doesn't matter what PlayStation puts anymore, just the proposition of Game Pass is now so bulky and heavy for many different fans across the gaming spectrum. And that's basically it. Call of Duty is already a chunk of the gaming space because that is a chunk that plays the most on any platform that you can basically, on either of the two platforms anyways, whether it be PS or Xbox. On PC, it's a whole different case. On Nintendo, it's a whole different case. So this intersection causes very interesting reach for competition, and the conversation is had within that. But this particular thing also stems from the conversations that we've been having about Sean Layden basically casting shade at Phil Spencer for his comments on, well, we want you to have the option to play where you want to play. We don't want to do any slimy exclusive thing to force you to do what we want you to do. Now, this article basically, I don't know how you guys are going to take it, but let's go back and look a little bit at this. Okay, let's glance back for a bit. In the wake of Sony continuing to push back against Microsoft's pending acquisition of Activision Blizzard and Call of Duty for the sake of, in quote, PlayStation gamers, many have pointed out some ironies, like how Sony is currently advertising loads of PlayStation exclusive access to Modern Warfare 2's beta, including early access and a unique operator. Very interesting. You see, PlayStation was getting good deals from Activision and getting things like exclusive double XP, which was something that I saw in one of the more recent Call of Duty games. I think it was last year. And at this time, Microsoft had already acquired Activision, and there was still exclusive content for PlayStation. This is what PlayStation had been doing in money-hatting different aspects to pull players away from Xbox. But I think why Sony is protesting so much is not because of the loss of exclusive bonuses like this, which it will no doubt no longer get in a Microsoft-owned era. This is what we're seeing today. And this is his opinion, but he's correct. Because we're seeing it today. Nor do I actually think that Sony believes that Microsoft is going to make Call of Duty fully exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. This is a true claim because even Jim Ryan himself said he knew that it was not an exclusivity play. As Microsoft has said repeatedly, they're not doing that. And they would be leaving a massive amount of money on the table as a publisher by doing so. Sony knows this. Rather, Sony is fighting against this deal because they see the likely end result of this. That is new Call of Duty games being sold on PlayStation for full price, probably $70, while the same game is offered as included with Xbox Game Pass every year. That's it. End of video. This is what I've been telling y'all for a long time. I've been saying this, that the Game Pass proposition had always been the threat. We're seeing it now. We're seeing Sean Layden basically cast shade towards what Microsoft is doing, or at least what Phil Spencer said, even though Phil Spencer, you ought to look at the three fingers pointing your direction as well. In the cases where you paid for exclusivity, even though we know that Sony is more aggressive with the money hatting, basically almost causing an entire franchise, the Final Fantasy franchise, to pretty much remain an almost PlayStation exclusive until Square Enix looked around, read the room, and is now deciding to break away from that. And this is something that Sony feels like it can't compete against. They know they can't compete against it. Their own analysis showed that they know that they're behind, even if the game is still available on the console just as it's always been. They may believe that Call of Duty is a big enough series to really start to move players off PlayStation and onto Xbox. If they're going to get a free Call of Duty every year, in addition to all games, all Game Pass's other first-party earnings. Now, let's be careful. The free, he put it in quote, because Game Pass does have a subscription payment, which makes a whole lot of sense. If Call of Duty loses from PlayStation even 1 million or 2 million players, that is an extra chunk of change in terms of subscriptions for the Xbox ecosystem. If those 2 million people were to stay subscribed for 2 years, that is a $2 million times 240 in terms of math. Let's go ahead and run the math. That is $480 million of people that have basically moved a subscription or at least added maybe a subscription of the Game Pass to their own belts. If this drip feed continues to happen, even at the pace of 1 million per year, you're looking at something around the next few years, Game Pass adding somewhere around maybe 8 million, and you multiply 240 million times 8, you are now in the billions. And this is not talking about the people who would basically start out their whole experience maybe on PC and also jumping into Game Pass without having to make any shift, but just looking and saying the Steam is 70, the Game Pass is 16, I'm going for the Game Pass option. Now, he writes this, P.S. I believe Microsoft will keep selling Call of Duty on PlayStation after this deal, which is what we're seeing. I think Sony believes that too, but this marks a unique situation in which formerly third-party massive series will be heading to Xbox Game Pass, while Sony is still asking gamers to pay full price. This has happened a few times with Xbox deals as made, with games like Outriders, which launched on Game Pass but cost normal amount of PlayStation. But usually it's apples and oranges. Yes, Sony is charging $70 for Horizon Forbidden West and The Last of Us Part 1, while Halo Infinite and Forza are on Game Pass. But those are entirely different series. Here, Microsoft will be offering the biggest game of the year every year on Game Pass, while Sony would have to sell it for full price. Not that Sony offered its own games day one as part of PlayStation Plus or anything, but when Call of Duty is owned by Microsoft, it wouldn't even have the option, as Microsoft would never let that happen. But that doesn't seem to matter, as Sony has said repeatedly, they do not view Game Pass-like model where their biggest games are released on the service instead of sold individually is a viable way to fund those titles and turn a profit from them. So it's not that Sony doesn't have anything to complain about. I just think people are missing what they're actually afraid of. And Sony is not being honest about it either. Losing exclusive beta weeks and operators is small potatoes. But nor do I think the disaster, in quote, scenario of Microsoft ripping Call of Duty off of PlayStation completely is likely, which Sony has to know. Rather, Sony will not say what they're actually afraid of. Microsoft giving away Call of Duty every year to Game Pass subscribers, while Sony will continue to charge full price and be given a cut of that revenue directly to Microsoft. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the culmination of the one thing that I've been telling y'all for a very long time, but nobody wanted to listen at that time. Now here we are, and we're looking at this particular situation. Shout out to J-Rock for posting this article here where I saw it. Shout out to Paul Tassi for having written it in 2022, because everybody knew this was the case. But at that point, it was easy for everybody to start mouthing off because it had not closed yet. But the scenario that it closed is the scenario that we're in right now. So this is the reality. PlayStation, it's your turn, your move. Thanks for watching the video. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Peace out.